Okay, now this video is going to be called Bubbles of Light and Third Eye Opening. Something to that effect. And this is a drawing I made, and it is a video also, and I will put this in the description bar because it's a rather long video, over 30 minutes. I just want to show you a few of the illustrations at the front because I think I explained it rather well, what I'm seeing and how my third eye looks to me. So I'm going to begin it now. So you can actually see it. It takes me a while to get the light right. I'll bring it in a little closer. Maybe that'll do it. Okay. This is supposed to be like my nose. I'm trying to draw a picture of what it's like. And right here is my eye, but it doesn't look like an eye. When I see it outside of my body, I see it as a flap. And I think I had explained in the last video how when my third eye opens and closes, as I'm seeing it in the light, I see this flap right here that just opens and closes with the opening and closing of my own eye. So I think it's my third eye I'm seeing outside my body. And there's all these little colorful bubbles that cling to either side of these flaps here. This is a flap and that's a flap. And this light is coming out from inside my eye and going into this bigger expansion of an orb that is always moving. And it's like my eye is biting into a big orb, which it looks like sometimes it hasn't quite gotten through it, but it can see into it. And all this color goes into the orb. First, when I would see the orb with all these little things floating around, well, they weren't very colorful. They were more like black and white. But then over time they began to be colorful. And sometimes I think the color comes from us, our observation. Maybe the color is showing our emotion. Now, these little things you see here, I have better explanations of them. I want to show you here. I'm looking into the light, and right here would be the light source. The light is very close to me. And there's little circles that form. And I see a circle with my right eye and a circle with my left eye, the orb. And each has different kinds, some similar but some different kinds of things that float about in the orb. Like with my right, I don't see the same thing I see on the left. And I have a picture of something that is rather large. But one day on the left side, I saw a black hole. And it had concentric circles of white all around it. And then over time, it quit being just black and it started having a little swirly looking color of white in there. Just the other day, and this has been months, sometimes I don't look at this. This I don't photograph because I can't photograph this. But the other day when I was looking at it, and I don't look at it every day, but the other day, this was kind of a light blue, and there was some pink in there. It was getting color as well, where before it was only black and white. But that's an exaggerated size. It's really small, and it's only seen with my left eye in the orb. Now, this is just a little illustration of some of the little things that float around that I call GTLs, gossamer tubes of light, or you could say gossamer threads, because some of them are real tiny and they look like you took some thread and just moved it in your finger and bunched it up. It's very weird. Doesn't look like intelligence, but I believe it is. Now, one time, when I was in a very sad kind of a feeling, as I was looking at the light, because the light responds to emotion. Real happy, maybe real sad, but I was sad that day. And it was like I traveled inside the light, visually, not physically, of course. And I went through all these little tubes and things. It was like, it would be like saying if you were swimming in seaweed and you're just moving through the seaweed, and you see the next little clump of seaweed as you get past one. Anyway, these little tubes, I'll show you this. They were little tubes, and I got to go up real close vision-wise to the tube, and I'll show you what it looked like. The tube that I was looking at, well, I was feeling very emotional. There was a cut, because this was longer. There was a cut on this side and a cut on that side. I saw that happen, these two cuts come. And a portion of the tube was removed from the tube. And what ran through the tube, you could see it. It was like it was visible. It wasn't closed in. Maybe I was just supposed to see what was running through these little tubes. And it looked like a lot of little diamonds. That's what it looked like. Or little crystals or something like that. And I always felt like maybe that part was cut out and given to me somehow. In some kind of way that I can't really show you except with this little example. I made this out of clay and some little beads because I wanted to remember it visually. But anyway, I think this is part of seeing with your third eye. I think that I have a third eye that is beginning to open, but it's not all the way open. And the reason I think it's not all the way open is I think I would have more answers. I still have a lot of questions. But I began wanting to show people the little orbs of light that I also see. Not the great big one. I can't possibly get that one. I can pray about it. Maybe I will someday be able to show that. The really huge big one that I look into, in the orbs that I take pictures of now, only portions of what is in that are in those smaller orbs that I can get visual pictures of. And I just want to show you here are some of the ways the little gossamer tubes of light look. They're kind of like a worm, kind of like a worm that has little bubbles of light in it. And sometimes it's intermingled with other, like a huge orgy of worms there, see? All tangled up together. And sometimes it's just straight lines. But sometimes it's lines like this that form a little shape of a sort, kind of like a little boat. Okay, this goes on, and you can watch this one if you want to because will be in the description bar. It's called Third Eye Opening and Orbs. But what I want to talk about now are the little colorful bubbles because I'm seeing them in the orb pictures that I'm getting. Now on this other screen, which I'll move to now, and let's see, adjust. Oh, wait a minute, this camera won't let me move the focus once I get it set. But that's all right, I've got a pretty good focus here. See, in the orbs now, I'm seeing these pockets of colorful bubbles. And they don't stay in the pockets. Look here how they have spilled out of this one. You can tell just spilling right out. Now, I have a theory, and it's just a conjecture on my part, but that our thoughts are like those colorful bubbles. And that we place them in the big orb, which is the collective consciousness of all that is. And that they color our part of the world with what we think, our colorful bubble thoughts. Now, this is a picture of an orb that seems to be full of colorful bubbles, and they seem to be just hatching right out of this orb that seems to have had a coating, and maybe they filled it to the maximum and then they just had to come out, because these little colorful bubbles are in many of my photos of orbs, and I put a collection together to show you them. And these colorful bubbles, you can see they make a band around an orb. It just goes around it like a belt. And sometimes the orb seems to be like broken open and there's colorful bubbles inside the orb. Maybe our thoughts enter into these orbs and create all these different ways that the orb is going to look because of how we think. Now look at this one. It's like a bunch of colorful bubbles are taking over or merging with an orb here. And look at this one. It looks to me like those colorful bubbles just drape off of the sides of this orb, because you can see how they go down. There was a movie called What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, and he was in an afterworld that everything was like paint that was alive, and the paint would, you could push through it and it didn't get on you, it just moved. Well, that's what this world looks like. It looks like paint that just drapes over things. Weird, I know, but here's some more of those little colorful bubbles that are just moving through this orb here. And there's some in this one. I'll bring it up closer so you see them. They're in the crevices of this orb here. There's some that seem to be on the surface of this orb. There's some in two spots. And before, when I got this picture, they just looked like a black hole. They were just black. But when I took some of the light out, because I always do that with my pictures, because when you capture it, you get too much light and you have to put shadow in. You have to put the dark in to bring out the colors. And those two dark spots became what looked like the little colorful bubbles. And I think we need the dark to develop the light. It's kind of like old-timey photography, you know how they had to go in a dark room and take the negative in there to get the positive result of the picture that would come from it. And there's so many parallels like that with light. Now see, there's the little pockets again in this orb. And this one actually looks like the bubbles are about ready to come out of it. And there's some in the cluster right here. And this looks like an entire orb of colorful bubbles. And it's right next to one that isn't that. So maybe our thoughts are shown in the form of these colorful bubbles and these orbs. Look at them, they're on the side of this one. But I've noticed that any darker color just gets absorbed into the orb. It doesn't seem to be fighting it, or it seems to be working with it. And here's another one, the colorful bubbles in this one. And here's some colors that have bubbles in them that are colorful. And they're not formed into an orb, they're just moving around amongst the orbs that are out there. Here's another one of a band of colorful bubbles circling around an orb. And look at this one. Move the camera a little bit. See, up there is an orb that seems to be full of colorful bubbles. And here's some that are just all over this orb. But nothing ever stays the same, because this is a still picture. Were the video, you would see that this doesn't stay the same. It's always moving and changing and creating other kinds of looks. There's some more. Oh, that's not. There's more. There's some more of the. And look, I think they even get the colorful bubbles start getting longer, and they start taking on some of the aspects of the light that's in the orb, and they start lightening up themselves. They're not quite so dark, orange and green and blue and yellow. They become lighter because they're mingling with the light. And there's a really colorful one that has the colorful bubbles in it. And that this is just all theory on my part, because I get these pictures, and when you get pictures you look at them and you try to fathom out what in the world is this. And I figure my guess is as good as anyone, probably maybe better, because I've seen these for many years now. I've been photographing them, and I'm noticing things. I don't have a scientific background, but I do listen to a lot of people who talk about quantum physics and all kinds of things, and it seems to me like physics, quantum physics, is catching up with the mystics of old. They're discovering that everything is made of light. And also, something the church doesn't really like to hear, that we're all one, that everything is one. As Walter Russell says, everything is indissolubly bound together. Like in this rock, there is gold and silver and all things else. Because what is tiny is so tiny, it's more immense in its tininess than what we think of as big out there in outer space. It's like the little acorn has the entire tree, the potential for it within the seed. And just because something is tiny, in the quantum world, tiny means nothing. 2 and 2 doesn't add up to 4 in the quantum world, because it multiplies exceedingly fast. And I guess I ran out of those pictures. But I have so very many pictures of orbs that they're just too numerous. I'm going to do several videos because I want to show some of the things. Like, look at this one. That looks exactly like a wave, and it's an orb. You can see the lines of the orb here and then you see the edges of it right there. And the orb is such a flexible thing, and I believe it to be a living thing. And I've read a lot of esoteric books, and they say that the atom has imprisoned light in it, and that the only way we're going to ascend is to not offend even the tiniest atom. But we do that so bad. Our science is like a magic that's black magic, because we force the atom. We force the atom to be an atomic bomb. But if it's a conscious entity, it doesn't want to be used to be a destructive force like that and kill people and animals. So we have to respect the tiniest little atom and whatever it is that composes it, and try to understand it and communicate with it. That's my desire, to do that. Anyway, this will be a short video. I'll have to gather some more pictures for another part of this documentary to show you some of the other things I'm seeing light do, and giving you my thoughts, and you might consider them right on, or you might consider I'm some kind of a nut. It doesn't really matter to me anymore, because I've lived with this for years and I haven't seen many people interested in it at all. And family and friends act like, well, that's nothing. That's just something marbles do. You're getting light from glass marbles. But they don't realize I see this with the naked eye, and without the use of a glass instrument to get a shine off of. What I'm filming is the shiny spot of light, and it can be shining off of a glass object or a metal object anything that collects a bunch of light into a shiny spot, that's where I find my orbs. With my camera, I can take pictures of it. But you need a digital camera. You need it to have focus that goes in pretty far. And also you do best when you use the LED light. There's something about the LED light. It is different than other kinds of light. Sunlight's good to use the sunlight, but if it's directly overhead, you don't get the slanted rays and you won't get good orbs because there's way too much light. But if you wait till the sun's lower in the sky and the rays are all slanted, and then you film it, you will get better orbs, more colorful. But they're everywhere. They're in empty space. They're all around us. And I just think it's so very interesting. I would hope that this documentary will get some scientific minds looking into this, because there's so many tests and experiments they can do if they're a mind to. I haven't got the attention of any scientific person yet. So maybe after this documentary is out there, it will get to some of them, and maybe they'll let me hear from them. I hope they do. Anyway, this is the Dove Lady, over and out for now.